Microphone check, 1, 2. We sound great. Dude, we sound great.
I think so.
I think we sound good. We are recording there. Gotta double check. Don't want to out Bobby myself. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Discombobulated. Today I know I say this, but I mean this fucking so much. Probably shouldn't cuss in the intro. But today I have a very special guest. You know him from the Miss Pat Show, Generation Kill, Malcolm in the Middle, and from my personal favorite horror film, watched it more than any other horror film, Jeepers Creepers 2.
What?
Everybody welcome Eric Nenninger, everybody. Dude, thank you so much for being on the pod and for being, I know I said this many times to you, but you and especially your wife have such a good aura around you that I get very lucky meeting people that I've looked up to. But like you were literally so nice when I ran into you. It was crazy. I've told multiple people that story. I'm like, he literally turned around. I was like, "Are you who I think you are?"
And you go, "Who do you think I am?"
That's exactly what he said. You, "Who do I think I am?" I go, "Sorry, I don't know names." Malcolm in the Middle. You're like, "Yeah." I go, "Chills." Yeah, dude.
That was a good night.
It was a great night. But dude, that was cool for you to be able to be like at a show that I did like that. To me, like to be able to like tell Bobby growing up that you'll be like, dude, that like Eric Nenninger is going to be at your show. Cause I have seen Jeepers Creepers more than any other horror film by far. That's for awesome. Sure. And I love when I asked you, I go, "What's your favorite thing you've ever done?" You're like, "Dude, Jeepers Creepers 2. And I go, "Really?" And you go, "Not at all." I was like very, very cool and honest. I love that,
Give
dude.
the
That's
people
great.
what they want.
Yeah, you got to give the people what they want. But yeah, that's awesome. I kind of want to like, I don't know much about you and I was going to look stuff up, but I was like, I kind of want to just organically literally get to know you. And we were kind of chatting outside, which was nice, like to get to chat. We always say this, but we're like, man, we burned a lot of stuff outside.
All the good stuff happened.
All the good stuff outside. But for real, like you were talking and you went to like a theater school. Was that like in high school or was that in college?
It was in college. I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri.
And so this is the St. Louis Crescent. My friend Amy said I had to ask you, where'd you go to high school?
Ladue, but I grew up in Olivet, which is always the caveat for when you go to Ladue, because you want people to not know. You want people to know that you didn't grow up in Ladue.
Yeah. Like just so you know, it wasn't like that. It wasn't
I'm not
Ladue.
rich.
Yeah. I'm not Ladue, dude. They're Ladue, dude. We don't fuck with Ladue. No one, even everyone in St. Louis. If you say Ladue, they just look away from you.
Yeah, they're like, great.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, sick. All right, and then so where'd you go to college?
I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, which sounds more prestigious than it is.
I think it's the right amount of prestigious, right?
It's pretty good. I mean, not to brag, but it's the oldest acting school in the United States.
That's awesome.
The one in New York. The bastard stepchild is the one in Hollywood, which is the one that I went to. They opened that in the 70s. And unfortunately, we just found out that they're actually closing that campus. I know. R.I.P. AADA West. But I graduated from Ladue and moved out to California.
Yes.
And went to the American Academy, which is a acting school, a drama school. It's a conservatory. Damn. We studied voice and Shakespeare. We had no math, no science, nothing. So kind of, you
literally didn't have to do math at that school. Like it was all about just.
It was all acting. It was all acting, voice, movement, styles, all that stuff like that.
Oh, dude, my parents would have, if I would have gotten into that school, my parents would have kicked my ass.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
My mom left my room made up. She was like, "He's coming back soon." Yeah.
Dude, that's so cool that you're like, "Oh, I'm late to pretend class." Like that, you're like, and when I say that, I mean that with like reverent, like that's like, it is like a whole thing to learn. Like I do have friends that like do stand up that are like, "Yeah, I could probably do that." And I'm like, it's so much harder than you think. Even when I've done like small commercials, you're on set and you're like, red leather, yellow leather. Like, you don't talk.
You don't need to warm your voice up, dude. You have no lines,
Oh my God.
No, it was sort of like a trade school. Like if you went and you only studied to be an electrician. Like I only studied to be an actor, which I probably would have had an easier time being an electrician. But I tell my friends that I went to clown school.
For much. Sure. And then how much fun was college? Was it awesome? Was it hard?
I mean, I loved it because all of a sudden I got to act every day, all day, and that's all I was responsible for. And then I was around my people.
And were you guys just like, was that like part of it, just like watching films, just like fucking?
It was mainly theater stuff, so it was like doing that. You know what I mean? It was like
really dramatic, or like.
Very dramatic, very serious, but also playful. Literally, the school's campus was at an old elementary school, and so we were pretending like we were in third grade again, and everybody was there to act, and they were teaching you the real stuff that you loved so much as a kid. Like I would watch movies and be like, "I want to do that. That's amazing." I had such reverence for all these guys that I grew up watching. So when all of a sudden a teacher was explaining this is how you do it, and you were studying stuff that was 1,000 years old, and you were doing what you felt like was real acting, and then I met friends that I studied still have till this day. And I met my wife. You
guys met at school?
We met in college. Yeah.
Oh, were you guys were pretend being in love, and then all of a sudden, like, real fell in love?
Yeah, she was pretending. I was like, hey, wait, I thought this was real. Yeah.
Were you like, how? It always sucks. No matter how much progressive we get or anything, I think it's always weird being a guy, because I think no matter how much you want equality or like whatever, no matter how progressive we get, guys still have to make the first move. Yeah. And then when you don't, you have to be like, I actually think I'm right a little bit. Like, you have to, like, there's girls that you've known and you're like, hey, I like you. And they're like, why didn't you say something? You're like, I have many times. Right. It's almost like I could guess this, and they'll be like, I'm a witch, and you're like, I guessed this right. I'm a warlock.
I knew it. I knew we were meant for each other.
So when did you like first like see her? Was it in a class, just at school, or whatever?
Yeah. So I worked. I had a work study program. Our school was divided into 2 sessions: the morning session and the afternoon session. And so the morning session was kind of all the serious people that could wake up and get their ass to school by 9 a.m. And the afternoon session would roll in around like 1 or 2, hung over from the night before, and then they would go do their pretend, learning. Yeah. But I had a work study program, so I worked in the costume department in the morning session. Okay. And that paid me a little bit off my tuition. So I saw my now wife in the hallways, and I was like, yeah. She wanted nothing to do with me.
Really?
Well, because I was one of the slackers from the afternoon session. She's like, those guys are not serious.
Yeah,
right?
You're not serious, but you're like, I'm already at the school. I at least deserve to sleep in, because isn't that what like Belushi did? Like, there's all these great people you heard. Like, slacking is a part of the arts, and people who are great will always be great. And I'm sure that your wife was always great, but some of us need to be slackers to become great.
Yes, I needed my time in the morning. And then there was a 2-year program, and you had to be invited back for the second year. Okay. So you sort of auditioned in your finals. Our finals were doing a play. Yeah. And then when I got invited back for the second year, I decided that I wanted to be with the more serious people. So I signed up for the morning session then. Gotcha. And then I was, And
then you can't, because there's no going back. I thought you could just pick, like everyone could just go to the late or early.
Yeah, no, you were assigned.
So you had to decide like early on, you're like, I am not drinking Miller Lights this year. Like, I'm tonight.
Right.
Oh my God.
And then I was in an acting class with one of her very good friends. He vouched for me. I got a date with her, and the rest is history.
That's great. So the first date, once that was solidified, like once you had, it's all you need is just to be like, hey, get me around all these. Get me away from these other idiots.
Yeah,
and then we can figure it
out. And stuff.
Yeah, all the stoners. You're like, and I'm a stoner, but dude, that's
but I can wake
wild.
up. I'm a stoner with an alarm.
Yes, me too. That's actually that's a good special name. Stoner with an alarm is not bad, and it might be my next special. Yeah. That's great, dude.
Before we continue, you have really good mic technique. Like, I noticed that you're able. Like, and I don't quite know what to do with this.
Do you feel like that?
A little bit. I just don't know.
That's so funny that I was wondering, because I'm like,
put it here.
That is one thing that when I was going to do this, I had the more expensive ones in my cart. Right. And then once we rang out, long story short, like, I don't have great credit. I don't know what the number is, but it's like I'm older than my credit score is younger than me. Nice. Like, it's not good. And they gave me the thing, and they're like, it's going to cost, like, you go get a car instead of buying this equipment. So then I had to get like the cheaper ones. Yep. But I like this because instead of, even though it's better when you can just have it out here, from a comic, this feels better. Right. But I never thought about like an actor, like and what I feel so uncomfortable when I have nothing in my hands. Like in a scene when I have to do an audition, I always, whenever I do, like, when you have to like do like left and right, you have to like do your profile. I always put my hand in my pocket, and while it's there, I'm like, all my energy is in my hand. I'm like, oh, just relax. You got nothing to do but be in your hand. So for me, this is comfortable. But you're doing great. I was actually going to say it, but I didn't want you to start feeling uncomfortable.
I'm just mimicking you. I'm just whatever you do.
That's actually how you get good at a lot of things early on. People don't know that.
Yeah.
Who was like an actor? Did you have someone that you always like looked up to that you're like kind of impersonated a little bit?
Yeah, Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah.
That's
comedy
great.
and drama. I loved him so much. Those were the movies that I would watch. I love what he did.
And I can see that because you are very facial. You can tell what you're thinking. Like, I've been watching you in Generation Kill, and dude, when I went to the Fire Academy, they always called this fucking guy Captain America. And I was like,
really?
Why do they call him that? And I didn't know who Captain America really was either. I knew he was like in the comic books. Yeah. But now watching the show, I was like, that's what they were calling him. Because we would be like, we have to run 3 miles today. And he's like, hell yeah. And I go, that's fucking crazy. And I swear to God, he told me, he goes, Bobby, what are you going to do if you're in a fire? And I go, and I have to run 3 miles? That's a drag.
That's a big
fucking huge. Where am I running 3 miles from? But yeah, he was so intense, and they started calling him Captain America. Yeah. But you do such a good job in that show of like, and do what Jeepers Creeper, but just like, you can sell it on your face a lot. And that's always the acting I liked. Like, some people are very like, I don't know, they just say something and you're like, Jesus. Oh, like, you know what I mean? Like a Tony Soprano, like that shit. Like you see that guy just say a word and you're like, Whoa.
Yeah.
I've always liked like Tom Hanks. Like my guys, I like Jim Carrey. I've always like, now that I've met you, that's the only actor I need to meet now is Jim Carrey, dude.
Nice.
Honestly, this is
I
crazy.
definitely grew up with, I was a kid of the 90s. I graduated in 97. So obviously Jim Carrey was like the biggest thing and everybody wanted to be him and mimic him, which nobody else can really do. Cause I think like somehow he's able to be a cartoon, but still buy him as a real person. So.
I always thought one day I was like, I might like be him. And then even you're like, I'll probably be better because I'm the next generation. You're like, no one can be him. Like there's just certain guys that no one can be.
Yeah.
You kind of find your own lane a little bit. And then when did you start to feel comfortable acting? Like, was it after you got like a couple jobs, like on some TV shows, or do you feel comfortable at all?
Yeah, I mean, you're always still a little bit nervous. Somebody said to me, if you're not nervous, you don't know what you're about to do. Like, what you're risking and stuff, which I always kind of remember that it's okay to be nervous. I think I started feeling comfortable in school because I was learning that what I was doing was something I could actually do. Like it wasn't mysterious. Like I knew that I could actually, this was how you did it. And I had like a knack for it. So that was great. And then I got out into the real world and started working on jobs, and the stuff that I had learned was working there too. So I was like, oh, I think I had a lot of confidence and I was comfortable in the beginning. Yeah. And then I had to like turn it into a career, and I was like, oh, I really need to learn like how to continually do this again and again and again. Yeah. And is the harder part, like, because it is the same with stand-up, but and I'm not trying to get ahead of you, but is the harder part, like once you do that, like the business side of it? Yeah, there's a little bit of what it means, to be an actor and what it means to like be a professional actor, and have a career over a long period of time. So I've been very fortunate to have worked for over 20 years. Yeah. There's been a lot of like lessons learned along the way. There's been a lot of huge successes. There's been a lot of like embarrassing failures that happened when no one saw it, fortunately. Yeah. And so there's a difference in each aspect of it. I think there's being an actor, and then there's having a career as an actor. Yeah. The business can be long and weird. Yeah. And you're sort of on your own a little bit. Like I think we were talking earlier that it's not necessarily a linear career. No. When a doctor goes to medical school, they become a resident. There's a track and a path. Yeah. If you do this, you will become a lawyer. As an actor, it's like, you might just blow up all of a sudden. You might ruin that opportunity. And you might start at like 5th grade, and then you have to go back to 1st grade. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm in college. And then you go like that. It's like at that level, like it changes all the time, even with stand-up. That's exactly how it is for actors. That's cool. That's cool to know that it's similar with all systems of art, probably. I would think so. If you're trying to make a career out of art, there's going to be like some mistakes along the way. You're going to, 5 steps forward, 5 steps back. Yeah. Because it's also this guess too, where if you're like, I've worked so hard to be like, if directors and bookers and stuff are looking at colors, sometimes like blue is you're closer to blue, and that's what's popular right now. But if you just stay true to your color, there'll always be a time where people are like, no one's orange like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, does that kind of make sense? And it's like, but you can try to be other colors, but it's like just being who you are, true to yourself, always kind of comes through. But there are times where I've definitely went on stage and been like, I'll even use blue. I'm like, I'm such a different person. I'm very dark or whatever. And afterwards I'm like, that didn't work. But it's like, and you try it, and then later you find like who you are. So it's like you have to do that. But the business part, to know that even like in an acting world that's harder is like, it's weird because we have less control. I think like you guys can find your own voice, and then you just have to get it out there. I have to lend myself to something that's already been written, to a bunch of it's such a collaborative art in that sense, and a collaborative business, that I can be, like you said, the greatest blue in the world, but they're higher in orange right now. Yes. And then I can feel like shit because I was like, oh, I'm a terrible blue. Yes. But really you have to reconcile in yourself that they just did not want to hire you. Yeah. But I just lean on people with a lot of experience, and I listen to anything that anybody says. Like, me too. Yeah, listening to advice. Like, do you ever watch young actors? Comments will do this too. They'll want, and I'll watch them getting advice, and they're like, "No, I'm doing this. Why isn't it working?" And I'm like, you have to literally sometimes sit and be like, "What's going on?" Yeah, I found a studio in Hollywood, and I studied there and I taught there for about 10 years. Whoa! And so that helped out a lot, because when I could sit on the other side and watch somebody go through something that I was going through and have to explain it to them, that meant that I had to learn it really, really well. So I had to learn how to manage actors' psyche and ego and emotions in the business outside of when they were actually acting, which made me look at my own self and learn little tips and learn like quick ways to explain it. Like, you could be going to a grocery store shopping for dinner tonight, and you're going to make pasta and you're going to make spaghetti, and you might pass by some incredible piece of salmon, and you're like, that salmon is so amazing, but I'm here to make spaghetti. Yeah. And so that salmon feels like shit because you didn't pick him. Yeah. But you're like, we're not making salmon right now. Yeah. So that reconciling that, and what happens is that you then take those hits into the next audition that you have, or the next job that you have, and you have to learn how to manage, all of the emotions that come with being rejected. No, totally. And that's such a right way to put it.
is that I almost cried. No, but that's such a good way to put it. And then stand up one time, there was a comic, Jeremy Essig, who really helped me when I first started. And I was telling him something because like I'm not very competitive, and I also like don't look at other people and like envy them, but I wanted more stuff and I wasn't getting it. And I remember Jeremy was like, when someone gets something, it's in stand up. This is just how they were like, it doesn't mean you didn't get something.
That's great.
It's just meant it's like good for them.
Yeah.
And like I was telling you earlier, my buddy just got like this weekend or whatever, and he's doing a show. And I'm like, once you can be like happy for people and realize that like you're just not what's happening right now, then you can kind of, it's actually better because then you get to feel good. Because then that salmon gets to be like, you weren't ready for me anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You get to be like, another time, baby. Yeah. Like, and that's what's nice.
For us, it's such an immediate thing because you just didn't get that one project.
Yes.
And like I turn it over so many times. Like I'm fortunate enough to audition a bunch. So I can, it's not like I brought my whole self like you do with stand-up and it didn't work. I just auditioned for that one project and they hired somebody else. And you're right. Like it wasn't that I didn't get it. I love that. That's even interesting. It didn't take a shot on me. They just, it wasn't my role to get. It wouldn't have mattered if that guy wasn't there.
Yeah.
They still wouldn't have hired me because they weren't looking for me anyway.
Same way with JFL new faces and stuff. Like you'll do it and everyone's like, oh, I didn't get picked. And it's like, there's been friends where I'm like, you won it, but once you don't, like some people literally hold it on them. And I'm like, we all agree you're fun. And that's what's cool too, is you have peers that will be like, no, you're actually good. It's just not your time right now. And acting's it is even weirder too. Cause like you said, like we do have the freedom to like kind of do what we want. And you're kind of at the mercy of like, I hope I fit this role. And then like, I've prepared that's the hardest thing. And I've never had to do it at your level. But when you do, I did one the other day where they were like, it's a stoner guy in a rock and roll band. And I'm like, let's fucking go. And then after, like, I never care. Sometimes you're just like, you turn it in. And then a couple weeks later, I'm like, there was another guy who looked better than me. I'm like, I've been growing my hair out for years. There's no way during COVID he decided he was going to do this too. And so like that happens. But also it's like you just kind of go back to like, you can always sit and like work on what you do. But that's cool that I do want to talk about the teaching aspect because there are classes and I've done like less like where you sit down with someone. But like for me, I can only watch someone and then I'll be like, hey, like it's kind of like a jewel. I'll be like, if you like this, you can have it. If not, you can throw it in the trash because I don't need it. But I saw this and I think you could use this. And I've done it long enough where a guy messaged me from Milwaukee, goes, every time it kills. And I was like, every time that little thing that you told me like kills. And that's how I like to help. Stand-up's weird like that because some people, it's not like acting. You can't say something definitive, like some people or whatever. But how is that how acting is like teaching it? Are there definitive things or do you dissect, like you have to dissect individually as well?
You definitely want to tailor it to like the person because whatever they're going through, they're the only one going through it. But there are definitive things that you need everybody to learn because you're trying to adapt to an established script that's already been written. Yeah. So I always make the comparison to music. So if I'm going for an audition, that means that there is a band that is asking me to get up and play with them. I should know what kind of music they play. I should know how to play that music. I can't be like, oh, I don't do punk rock and then try to stand up with you who already have a band and have written a song and have a gig. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm going to do classical instead. Yeah. And they're like, what are you talking about? So I think there are definitive things that actors need to learn how to do. You know, it would be technique. It would be like stuff that you have to do. And then there's organic things that actors need to find in themselves, which kind of be like the voice that you're looking for maybe in stand-up comedy. And so you teach the actors the technique and then you help them with the actor psychology to kind of like find freedom would be the best way to describe it. Yeah. So that they can play punk rock music freely. Yes. And then they have to pick up their guitar or whatever instrument they have and they have to go do a ska band or a jazz band or a classic rock band or a country band because we're always sort of hired guns, especially in the television world. Yeah. But I think one of the things that's definitive is like respect the music that you're trying to play with this group. So if I'm going to audition for something like Abbott Elementary, I better know what Abbott Elementary is. I better know how to do that. I better have respect for Quinta Brunson. I better be able to stand up and like kind of honor what she is already established in the show, not walk in there and be like, I'm going to do it my way and only my way. Then in that little parameters, you want to do it your way and be free and have fun and make yourself laugh. And, you know, same thing goes for a drama or whatever other tone you're doing. Yeah. So a lot of the teaching was getting people to understand that there was a technique, a musicality to what they were doing and then getting them out of their own way. Damn. You know? Yeah. Cause there is a thing of like being confident, but not being too much of an asshole. Is like someone tells you something like, how do I bend in this scene and go what you said, but also to know that like, I get what you're saying, but that's going to make the whole tower fall down if I move this piece. And like, Absolutely.
And I don't know, and I've never done acting as much, but this kind of goes into stand up a little bit on like, I've had a manager once go, "Hey, great set. That one joke you do is too dark." And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And if she would have said anything else, if she would have been like, we had a complaint or whatever, but when she said it, I was just like, okay, thank you. And I was like, I'm totally going to keep doing that bit because she doesn't do stand up,
right?
But I respect what she meant by that. But if she would have been like, "Hey, you have to sell these tickets afterwards," I'm like, "Oh, you're right. I do have to do that."
Yeah.
When will you start that pushback in that process? Because I've never been there, but like in the audition, if they say to change something, will you make a drastic change, or will you be like, "No, I'm just going to stick by my decision," or does that? Please.
Usually what happens is when somebody gives you a note and tells you to do it a different way, I'll do it a different way because I feel like they know better than I do.
Yes.
Because it wasn't something that I wrote. There's been times when like I viscerally have a reaction to it and that can get in your way. You can be a blinder a little bit. So I'll throw stuff out completely, or I may want to discuss it a little bit, but I'm still playing somebody else's script. I'm still, and they kind of know better. So if it's the writer and he says that guy's not that angry, I might, talk with him about why, but really the job as an actor is to justify it inside yourself and find your own reason for not being that angry. Because again, if you want to do exactly what you want to do, write your own thing. Write your own thing, make your own movie.
Gotcha.
You be the one you be the showrunner, you be the director. But in terms of a note, now it kind of varies whether it's TV or movies or commercials or theater. Like I feel like theater, when you're doing that, the actor has a little bit more control, but still the script is the guy that told us what to do.
Yeah, isn't there? I didn't even know that there's like laws that like you can't say a different word.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's even crazier.
Crazy.
I would, even if someone was like, "You're perfect for this role," I go, "I can't remember every line of my own act of anything at all." Like I literally said, I was like, "Don't cuss in the intro." And as soon as I did, I was like, there's two guys in there fucking trying to drive this thing. It's crazy. But you do a good job of also, even though we've known each other for a little limited time, you handle my ADHD very well, which I appreciate.
Nice.
Like you can handle like how I go into stuff and understand what I'm saying, which is very nice. But I think maybe it's because you've probably been around people like me a lot, like very energetic comics, like very needy actors.
I did teach for a long time.
Yeah, that's crazy. Dude, I don't know if this was my agent's great, and I don't know whose mistake this was, but when you said like about rehearsing roles, so I was very early on. I didn't go to school, but I was in we're waking up at 1 p.m. as comics when we're just figuring stuff out. And I had this audition, and I swear to God, it said Timothy. And so I did as much research as I could do for this thing. And I was like, it says he's 13. So I kept reading this role and kept trying to be like, and I'm like looking in the mirror. I'm 22.
Yeah.
I'm full. Every part of this is true. And so I was like, I kept reading it and I was like, I feel like I could play this other person, but I think I even messaged my agent. I won't put it on her, but I remember I was like, I feel like I would be more like the dad, but I'm also young. So maybe I'm like, no one sees me as an adult. So I go into this audition. I'm not remembering my lines. I was like, I'll remember them right in my own. I was not great. I was early on in St. Louis being like a state actor. And I'm sitting there, I'm reading my lines. And then a family walks in with a 13-year-old boy. And this is what I wore. I had a green hoodie. That was what
that reads 13.
I was like, this is 13. So I'm literally sitting there, dude, and I'm so uncomfortable. And they walk in, they go, "Who are you reading for?" And I go, "Timothy." And they go, "So is he." And I go in there and they go, "All right, say your name." I'm like, "Bobby Jaycox, Timothy." And I'll never forget both of the guys just go, "Are you sure?" And I go, "Yes." And I did it. And they go, "Do you want to go try again?" And I went out there, I ran the lines, and I came out there. They go, "Are we supposed to go next?" I go, "No, I think I have to go back in." They go, "What's happening?" I go, "I don't know, but dude, I got so hot. I remember I felt like I was going to cry, and I just go back in there and I go, "I think we should just be done." And they were like, "I guess so." And I remember I walked home and I was like, I really should do more research. But that was when I started signing up for the earlier classes.
Right. That's when you wake up at 9 a.m.
Yes, that's whenever I'm going to go to the next realm for sure. But that's crazy. I think it's awesome, that you've taught. And the one thing I do want to ask, with stand-up, I get to choose what guy I am. The first time you get roles, because dude, and I can't, you're so awesome. You're so nice. You're so sweet. How is it playing roles of these guys that, like, when you're a kid, like you said, you'd watch these villains and you're like, fuck them, but they're great actors.
Right.
But when you're a kid, you literally, if you saw you'd be like, I don't like you. You know what I mean? Like, you're trying to lock everyone out of the bus and Japer's crazy.
Right.
I'm like,
save yourself.
Yeah. I was like, "You want to play Cock of the Walk?" I was like, dude, any part you want to quote, bro? We could go, bro. And so, but that whole like thing, is that freeing, or does it suck when you have to play someone who's not nice and cool like you? Like earlier on, do you want to play yourself, or is it freeing playing someone you're not?
I think it's freeing.
That's cool.
You get to be a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about any repercussions.
That's so
And you get to get
cool.
all that stuff out.
And you do a great, and I mean this with love. You do. I didn't even know how to say this. I was like, you did such a great job of being like even in Generation Kill when I was like looking for you, which every guy looks like you. When I was watching, I was like, when's he gonna come up?
My mom thought I was someone else for a long time.
I thought you were the.
She thought I was Alexander Skarsgård for a long time.
Is that the guy who's the captain of like the guy driving?
Yeah, the Iceman, like the lead guy.
Yep.
Who's in the passenger seat.
That's who I thought you were. At first, I was like,
yeah.
Am I so high? I'm bad at like because I was watching it on my phone in my car. I was on the road when I started watching it, and I was like. I was like, which guy is that? I kept pausing it. I was like, man, he looks different, but all right.
We all look alike.
And then what? Yeah, we all do. We all do. Dude, I was like, before the long hair. Yes. Oh my God. I would have loved to have gotten declined roles you got.
Seriously.
But yeah, so whenever I watch that, like, dude, when you're burying your fucking AK-47s and crying, I was
really
like,
happened.
Yeah. Wait, you literally had to cry?
Well, I literally had to cry and bury AKs, but the real guy did get a hold of a bunch of AKs and then buried them. So because all of a sudden he didn't want to have them on them. 90% of that stuff is true.
I had, and I saw at the end. I'll watch it, and I was like, oh, written by the same guy who wrote the books, but I didn't even know so it's like a pretty true shit.
Very true shit.
It's opened my eyes. I didn't grow up with like learning about the war, and I was just young.
Yeah.
So now when I'm learning new stuff, like people are like. Yeah, dude, there was guys also over there doing stuff that they're like, this doesn't feel right to us. It's an incredible story. When I watch it, it stresses me out. So then I have to switch to Miss Pat to like watch it and be like, okay, let's watch about race. And then I'm like, okay, at least there's a laugh track. Whatever. But
know when to laugh. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was an embedded reporter that went alongside with the Recon Marines as they blasted their way.
The guy from Wayne's World.
Who?
The guy, wasn't the reporter guy? That's who was the guy who's in the show. Was that who he's playing?
Yes.
That reporter guy, the guy, because he's in Wayne's
is the actor's name. Yes.
When I saw that, dude, that's how I watch movies. I'm like, whatever. I'm like, you're the guy.
He's an awesome guy. He's an awesome guy. He was playing Evan Wright. Evan Wright wrote like an expose for Rolling Stone.
Yes.
Turned it into a book. But he was sitting where that reporter was, rear passenger side of a Humvee as they drove all the way into Baghdad.
Yeah.
And he just recorded everything that happened, met all the guys, became like brothers with them, and then turned it into the miniseries. So awesome. Every single person in that show is a real guy.
Whoa!
The only thing that
you gotta stop giving me chills, bro.
Yeah, no, it was crazy.
Crazy.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
The only thing that they like manipulated was they sort of like compressed maybe 2 firefights into one.
Sure.
But for the most part, it's all real. And 3 of the
And that's
guys,
my least favorite stuff about like honestly war stuff. Like I like movie like 1917 when it's about people.
Oh,
like
that movie's so good.
When he's walking to that fucking tree at the end and he's so fucking tired.
Oh my
We've
God.
all, as a guy and any person, you've been at a point when you've been through your thing and you're like, I just gotta go sit by that fucking tree and watch this fucking sun.
But
that
he's floating down the river and like the rose petals or whatever they are, the flower petals, and then he starts floating. Not spoiler. Starts floating into the dead.
But it was made in 1917. If you've never seen it, it's been out for a while.
It's way ahead of its time.
Yeah. But dude, so that it's very real. So okay, so that guy, and I want to get back to that because you just blew my mind.
Yeah.
So that really happened. There was a guy that you were. What was your character's name? What was his real name? Because they only call him Captain America.
Dave McGraw.
Dave McGraw.
Captain McGraw. Yeah.
Captain McGraw. That guy was like an over intensified, look at me, motherfucker. Like,
he was an analyst. He was like super, super smart. He would never be involved in combat. Like he was crazy smart. He would be in the back taking all of the intel that people gave to the Recon Marines and like putting it together and sending it out. But they took all of the best soldiers, put them into Humvees, and then just sent them as fast as possible. It was actually to kind of distract the Iraqi army because they thought that was the invasion when really they were going to come around the side. So military strategy or something like that.
No,
so I always thought
awesome.
of it. Yeah, I always thought that Dave McGraw looked at what they were asking him to do and was like, this is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Which the rest of them did, but they were all soldiers. They were like badass reconnaissance Marines, like Green Berets, Navy SEALs, like the elite of the elite. And so they were like, well, we'll just get through it. We're the best of the best. This guy, I think, looked at it and was like, this is crazy. I mean, we should not be doing this. So I think that was why he was always freaked out.
Holy
I mean,
fuck.
there was a great line that was in it where he says, like, my character says to stay in a place where you think you might die, to remain calm when you're in a place where you think you might die is insane. Is the definition of insanity.
Yes.
So he was looking around and I think he was like, the fact that you all are not flipping out is what's crazy because what we're doing is. So that's why he was so amped up and not not really suited for combat. You know?
Yeah, and I honestly, and I think later I learned it, but early on I was totally, and I don't believe I was an asshole, but at the firehouse, a guy had to be like, when we got calls, I would open up the door so fucking hard that he goes, so sometimes my kids come up here and you would have flattened them. Yeah. And he's like, so let's like be safe while we go help people. And I was like,
let's be safe.
You're right. You know what I mean? But so I love that you like, even obviously to the people that are like wanting to be actors or whatever, that like would get anything for, like, I'm getting something from this to be like, what was this guy actually thinking and see all that. But so, yeah, what happened with the AKs? Because I watched that scene, and sometimes in scenes, I'll literally have to like disassociate when it feels like, you know, you're like, oh, I remember getting yelled at like this. But like, he was literally like, go fuck, if you shoot one of those one more time. But so because when they heard it as enemy fire.
Absolutely.
And he just heard it as like,
mistake.
Coming to America. Like,
he was definitely teed up and definitely, you know, ready to go, but he got a hold of a bunch of the enemy AKs because he wanted to have them for safety or security, or he thought it was fucking cool, or he was just, you know, out of his brain a little bit. But yeah, when you start firing those guns, they think these super elite trained soldiers are like, that's the sound of an AK-47. We don't have AK-47s. There must be people shooting at us, which is what Captain America didn't have, like that foresight, like kicking the fire door open too quickly. The reality of what you need to do. There were a lot of moments like that because we had 3 of the real recon Marines with us on the show. One of them plays himself. 2 guys play other characters. So not only were they military advisors that could tell us all about the Marines, but they could recount exactly what we were going through.
It's incredible.
It's amazing.
They can, and also like every fucking time there's a scene with firefighters in shows about rescuing. There's always a thing where I'm like, the hose isn't hooked up. Yep. And in that show, I'll try to watch for like anything, and I'm always like, everything's accounted for, and it's wild.
They were on top of it.
And I just watched the scene. I just finished, I guess it was episode 5 the other day. And at the end, your character, I laughed so hard. You have all the AKs in your hand, and you fucking throw them off the bridge. And I was like, I love that he kept, that's how I would be too, is you keep your intensity, and you're like, I'm still, now no one will shoot him. I just thought that was such a funny, like, not it's just like, it's intense, but I was just like, oh my God, I saw that. I was like, I read that as a funny like line in a scene and shit too. So that's crazy. Well, I do, there's a couple things I want to talk about, and I don't want to get too far off, but like I said, and I think we can both agree, like I said, I would never say that, I don't think Jeepers Creepers is the best movie of horror movie of all time. But like when I was a kid, we grew up in that DVD time. We didn't have the internet when I grew up at my house. Like everyone else did. I go over to someone else's house. They're like, have you ever heard of LimeWire? And I'm like, break your parents' computer for me right now.
Let me see it.
I have to hear the news story of the year. I'm like, do it right now. So we would get so fucking intense about like watching stuff at other people's houses. But at my house, I just had like the DVDs and VHSs.
Me too.
Yeah, so you know how it is. And so it's like, so I remember Jeepers Creepers 2, and even people be like, what about 1? I go, I've seen it 4 times. I was like, whatever. But I really love that movie because they always say in horror movies, you're not supposed to see the thing. And in that movie, I actually like how you see the thing. Seeing it does make it, when he's licking the window, and then I'll show people and they laugh during that part. I'm like, it's pretty scary when you're younger or whatever. But I just loved that movie. And you did such a good job of, like I said, like playing that intense character, but also I can see, tell me if I'm wrong, I could see in it that you're also like, we're also making like a fucking silly horror movie. Yeah. So there's times like whenever your character gets the fucking thing, your hand with the fucking, when he throws that
into the tree.
Yeah, into the tree. Yeah. That scene, I kept thinking about it once you said you do the podcast. I go, I love that scene when you go, oh, because I'm like, that's actually kind of over the top, but also legit how you would react if that, you wouldn't go, wow, you would just go, oh my God, like you reacted. But like, what was that acting like? Was that different at all? Was it more fun? Was it like less, what was that like? And I also, we don't have to get into it, but I know that not every part of maybe that movie was great. Like I've heard that, whatever, but for me watching, I love it, dude.
I think that they're like, you have to remember sometimes that people are watching this and they want to enjoy watching it, and it's not real. And there is something to the fact of like, make a movie that looks like a movie. Like, you know, I was arguing with somebody the other day about which Fast and the Furious is a good one. Cause I was like, the first one is the only good one. He's like, fuck no, dude, 5 is great when they go to space. Like there is an enjoyment in doing stuff in the way that it, you know, is awesome and looks awesome. So sometimes instead of like getting, you know, method to what a knife would feel like, I'm just like, know what I mean? I'm like, what should this kind of look like for the people doing it? Like, shouldn't it, And so I think about maybe like the audience watching it and just make an awesome movie, like make it really cool, make somebody be like, yeah, that looked like it hurt really bad.
It did, and you made a great one.
I was pulling a gun out on some silly show called Medical Police, and like it's an over-the-top spoof comedy. It's a complete parody. And so like the way I was pulling it out was to look like an over-the-top spoof gun thing. And I was like whipping it out from the side and going like this. And this awesome actor, Rob Corddry, comes over and he's like, why are you pulling the gun out like that? And I was like, I don't know. It just looks like the way guns come out in movies. And he's like, that's the fucking best acting tip I've ever seen. And he goes over to the director and he goes, you know what Eric's doing? He's pulling a gun out the way people pull guns out on TV. And I was like, yeah, there you go. There's the secret to the man. And it looks fucking awesome. Like sometimes we're not always doing, Succession. Or, like we're not always doing that. And then just make it look awesome if that's what it's supposed to do. So a little bit of Jeepers Creepers, like that stuff there was like running into the tree and like having it hit there. And I was just like, this will look cool, which is not necessarily the best acting technique, but at the same time, like it's great movie making technique. And so I think I remember being like,
yes.
Dude, and then I started apologizing profusely because I thought Scott would do that. Scotty would be like, I'm so sorry for being an asshole earlier. Save me.
Yeah. Well, dude, I appreciate you walking me through that because I always want like that stuff that I don't know that like as an actor, like me, like I've only done me and Brian Scalaro did like online like acting stuff, and I've done I did like high school drama shit too, and just like on set is what I've like learned to just kind of watching. Yeah, and it's just one of those things like acting and like music are always two things that I've always revered, but never really been able to like do or accomplish. So whenever I hear stuff like that, because there's time in sketches where I'm like I played the guy from Brown and Crouppen, and I didn't think it worked because I literally the whole time was like, I watched videos and I'm like, like I kept trying to be Terry Crouppen, and then they're like, Bobby, just be fucking silly. And as soon as I did, I was like, oh, we've been wasting some fucking takes or whatever. Yeah. So it's, like you said, sometimes just do what acting looks like or whatever. Like but that's that kind
awesome.
Of stuff.
But I think you must do that in comedy too. I think like you have to hit a joke in a way that people expect jokes to be hit.
There are times where I'm authentically having fun and being in the moment, whereas if it's like, almost you could be recording like for like a part of your life. I'm like, I'm so present right now. It's crazy. And then other times where I'm like, I'm a comic doing that. Like for sure. And that's the acting part. But whenever you can like, when I sit in it and I'm like leaned against a wall and like and it might be the same with acting, but when you kind of feel cool, but not like your ego's big when you're like, I'm fucking doing stand up right now. Like there has to be that a little bit with like, maybe with acting, is it when you watch it on the thing and you're like, that looks good?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, sometimes you're in it and you're like, this is fucking cool. Like I am acting right now with this person and this huge set is here and all these cameras and everything like that. And you can just go ahead and like act it. Yes. And then there's times that you get completely lost in it, like you're saying, and you're not necessarily present because I think you're completely in it. So you're present in what the situation is. And you sort of go in between those two. Like sometimes you're completely manipulating it just to make it like work, which is fun as hell. Yeah. And then sometimes you're like, wow, I don't even know what happened there. But there's a lot of technique because if you get so lost in it, you know, and you're like, how was that? And we're like, we don't know. We didn't see it or fucking hear it. Could you maybe like face forward and say the line, in the way that the microphone can pick it up? Yeah. So it's a wonderful thing to kind of like scale in between those two things. But I love the full technique stuff. I love, I don't mind it at all. I think sometimes you feel bad because you're like, that's not the real stuff that I felt when I was, a kid dreaming of being an actor, but it is the real stuff. You were standing there on the movie set, pulling the gun out, and making the thing that you're trying to make.
Yes, and you would do it with your friends, and I'll like watch kids rehearse lines, and they do it better than some people I know with an agent. Yeah. Like literally, like it's crazy.
Timothy came in and just nailed it.
Yeah. He looked out and he goes, some of these actors.
Hacks.
Here we go. And just
they're the best one. I mean, also we used to play cops and robbers. We used to play like whatever we played in the backyard and we fully believed it. You didn't have to convince us that we weren't cops or robbers. At all. And all you really did was you did like a cop voice and you stood like a cop. Yes. And everyone believed that you were a police officer. Yeah.
And it's, dude, and little kid actors are so funny. I played, I don't think I've gotten to tell this on this podcast. I was in a commercial and I'm playing like a sick dad. And so it's me, my daughter, and my wife. And then like at the end, like I feel better, but they have to like be with me the whole time. I feel like shit. So we're sitting there and they're like, all right, cut. And me and this little girl are getting along way more than me and my wife because I'm a child. So we're like playing games. Like they have to be like quiet on set. And I'm like, for real. So then like, and her mom's like sitting over there and we're sitting there and all of a sudden they cut and like the boom mic's on us and I would kill if someone has this on like recorded and we're sitting there and this little girl goes, can I tell you a secret? And I was like I was like, yeah, it's getting recorded. Sure. I was like, for sure. And she goes,
what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, exactly. She goes, I steal money from my parents. And I start dying. And my wife goes, what are you saying? I was like, she goes, I steal money from my parents. She goes, we got to tell your mom. And I go, hey, leave the kid out. I was like, this kid should be learning science right now. And she's in a commercial. But no, she goes, I steal money from my parents.
Why
and I
did
was
she want to tell you that?
Because I think and I mean this, and it's weird that I never noticed that a little kid would have that, but I'm like a guy that like after a comedy show, people will be like, I have a favorite kid. I'm like, why are you telling me this? They go, I don't know. One time I was on the Metrolink and this woman, she probably to be like, I'm probably like 60 years old. We were just getting along, sitting together, both missed our stops, ended up at the airport. We were like, oh my God. Nice. And she was telling me about like her life. She was like, I've always kind of wished I, maybe did this. And I'm like, wow. She was like, I don't know why I'm telling you this. I go, I don't either. But like, and I think there's an openness that I have and I'll say anything. So I think it kind of like opens people up maybe or whatever. But
even little kids confessing to sins.
Yeah, even confessing their sins for sure, which I grew up in the Catholic Church. Maybe someone's rubbing off on me. My grandpa,
me too.
Did you really? Yeah. Oh, dude, I grew up, And honestly, when you're a kid, it's such a good place to like pretend meditate. Like everyone else is zoned out. And I remember just being like, dude, these are some crazy paintings. Yeah. Like it was such a wild thing. Like I still don't know. I've said this a lot, but I don't know where the homily goes. I don't know. I just zoned out every single time. And my grandpa's the deacon of a church. And I literally would just be like, I don't really know what goes on here. You know what I mean?
I've been to 9,000 services. I couldn't tell you the beginning, middle, or the end.
Don't we have some bangers?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Hosanna in the highest.
And you're so singing good. The hell out of them. You're like, oh, I love Lent.
Yeah.
When everything is dark. Good Friday's great.
Candle.
I remember saying to my brother one time, I was like, Good Friday is so cool.
Yes.
And he goes, it's not cool, because we were in it at the time. We were like, this is the death. Yes. And I was like, it's pretty awesome.
Dude, look, honestly,
everything gets dark. They strip the altar.
Dude, it does get dark. They strip the altar. When you walk up and you're getting communion, you kind of feel like you're part of the mafia.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like they got the lights down.
They're going to jump you in.
Yeah. Hey, thanks. Hey, go over there now.
Yeah.
Sick.
Go take some wine. No, it's okay.
I'm a kid.
Yeah. No, don't worry about it. You're cool. You're cool. We're here with us. You can drink with us. Only a sip.
Dude, we used to do this thing. Did you guys have at your parish? Did you guys have the thing where they're like, gambling's wrong unless it's at a carnival and
and there's a cakewalk or some
shit. And then, dude, I want a dog. They're so irresponsible with those things. I want a dog. And I came over to my family. I go, we want a dog. And they're like, no, you didn't. And my friend Randy got a dog. She raised this dog and come over and be like, that's my dog. Oh my God.
He never knows, right?
Yeah.
Little bastard child.
I come over and he's like, you left when I was young. I was like, I was young myself.
You don't know me, Dad. You can't tell me.
Oh my God.
I was a teen parent. I blame the Catholic Church.
Yeah, me too, for sure. And luckily that's all we have to blame them on.
Yeah, right.
There's so many things. Oh my God. Well, and also, and I know that goes weird transition, but it does, you feel like the one thing I don't really know about you that I do really want to know is, I mean, you and your wife, like I said, like sometimes you meet someone and even one of them being awesome is great, but you guys, like how you both turned around, and I'll bother people, but like just being me. But I literally was like, I feel like I'm like murkying up your guys' water. You guys just had such a peacefulness around you.
We had a great night.
That's good. That's awesome. Yeah. That means a lot. But what's it like being married and like being a dad?
Yep.
How many kids do you have?
I have 2.
That is awesome. That is, you seem like I did see a photo of you. I pretend like I didn't. I was like, how many kids you guys have? I saw a photo of you like at Busch Stadium, like John Hamm, fucking Eric Nenninger, the best actors are from here, bro. Fucking John Goodman, fucking all from here, dude. Fucking Jenna Fisher, dude. Everybody's from here. And I saw that picture. Ellie Kemper, yes, dude. And all these great people. And when I saw you guys at the stadium and that picture, you just seem so fucking happy. So talk about being a dad.
That was a good night. Yeah.
Do you love it?
Yeah, it's really, really great. It's funny because I have a 18-year-old boy who just finished his freshman year of college, and I have a 12-year-old girl who's just finishing 6th grade. And so I get the boy and the girl. There's a big split between the two of them. And so we've had like kind of separate relationships with them.
Yes. Me and my brother, how many years apart? That's 7? 6. Me and my brother are 7. It's a good distance because I feel like me and my brother have like a healthy relationship. Like I never just, if I beat the shit out of him, it's like, well, he's 7 years younger. What are you doing?
Of course I'm going to beat the shit out of him.
But whenever they're like that gap, it's like nice that he was probably like pumped to be whenever he got to be a big brother and shit.
It didn't like change his life. It wasn't like he was the baby and then all of a sudden he wasn't. He was 6 and then 7 and 8 and stuff like that. No, I love being a dad. My kids are great. My wife is a wonderful mother. We've raised like 2 kids that we're super proud of. And then you get this whole relationship that you don't expect. Then they're like friends and, mentors essentially, because you get to like teach them stuff or tell them stuff, but then they also teach you things when they see perspective. My son's like grown, so the two of us have an older kind of adult relationship now that's starting to blossom. But then when he was younger, it was a different relationship. But no, I enjoy it. It's awesome, and that was a really good night because my son has been at college for this year, so to have him back, we got the band back together, and then
was
we were
at
at
the
a
show?
Cardinal. No, he was at the Cardinal game.
I was like, I'm so sorry you saw my act.
No, we didn't take him over to the Helium Club.
Good.
No, so the four of us were at a Cardinal game, and that was great. And actually, not in that picture is my brother, his wife, and his two kids. So we did like a family Memorial Day thing. It's just fun. It's like it's family, and it's your family, and you can like do whatever you want. You know what I mean? You can be like, this is what Sundays are. This is what Tuesday night's going to be like. Like
I
we're
going
gonna
to do a podcast with this fucking idiot.
Yeah,
Like,
and we say that stuff too because my wife's an actress. So there's a lot of times when we're like, okay, the two of us are going to be in the back acting crazy.
Yes,
don't you can come and watch if you want, and the kids are like, we don't want to watch your acting. But funny thing, when I was younger, I was on a Disney show called Kickin' It. I played the principal of a wacky principal on a Disney show, and then my principal Funderburk, and then my wife
acting being like, he's divorced. He's kind of a drinking problem, but the kids can't know about that. He really keeps it separate.
I got all these secrets,
and then you get there, hey, kids, and they're like, that is what that guy does. It's actually more method than you think.
Yeah, he's had a little bit of panic on him. My wife was on Lab Rats, which was another Disney show at the same time, and so she was the mom on Lab Rats, and so the way that they would do it was on Fridays, you would do the entire episode of the show for the network executives. They've called a run-through, so think like the play, the entire episode, we would just stand up on the set, everyone would watch it, and my son was 8 years old at the time, or like 6, 7, and 8 when we were doing it, and they would always say that he could come to the run-throughs because that was the target audience. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the Disney executives to say that episode is awesome and they don't need to change anything. Yes. So if you can have an 8-year-old standing there laughing at everything, they can be like, see, it works perfectly. So it was this really, really, really cool, like specific to our family is that on Fridays we would do a run-through of Kickin' It, and James would stand there and watch his dad, like when all these executives and all these people do like silly stuff on a Disney show, and then when they finished the Kickin' It run-through, they would walk across the studio lot to another soundstage and they would do the Lab Rats run-through.
Yeah.
And so James would be there watching it, the Kickin' It run-through, and then James would walk over.
And that was a beautiful life.
And that was his like period of his childhood right there was like that. So it's this weird thing where it's just family. You're doing exactly what everybody does. They're raising kids and working their job and creating traditions and trying to like spend as much time as they can with them. We just do it as actors. That's our job. And so you get these weird moments where it's bring your kid to work day, but he got to see his mom and his dad. There was probably one season where they crossed over exactly at the same time, and he would just walk to the next studio and then be standing there watching mom do her Lab Rats thing. It was awesome.
That is so cool. And then aren't you, and also because even like I feel like it's hard for a parent to like watch your kid be like, I want to be a performer, but once you're a performer, there's the thing where you're like, I know how the organism works. So once they get to see it, it seems like a lot of acting kids are like, I don't want to do that, and you're like, nice. Like
absolutely. Don't let them become actors.
Do they show any sign of like interest in that, or they're around as kids and they're like, I don't really care?
My son wants nothing to do with it. Like he's very much the introvert, which is funny because he's the child of two actors.
Yes. You go the opposite of your parents.
Definitely. I think it might have been that because he was exposed to a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. They're introverted because you're extroverted for them, so they get to be. Which it's like, and if we're being honest, introverts makes way more sense like psychologically. It's crazy that we're all like,
tell everybody everything all the time. Like maybe you should keep something to yourself, dude.
My brother's like extroverted with people, but definitely more introverted. And you can just see him thinking through things. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, I really slipped and fell. He's like, yeah, I saw it.
That's my son. We're walking down the street and we're all like this. And he's like, you would just walk. You don't have to like see if anyone's watching you.
Dude, my best friend literally saved my life multiple times. But in St. Louis, I think we were walking to I can't remember what we were going to, but like downtown, grabs me, pulls me back, full truck, and I just go, oh, and he's like, how do you not notice? I go, what's crazier is I'm just ready to keep going. I'm not like,
it didn't affect me at all.
Life is so short. I was like, man, life's crazy. Let's go live it. Like, that's crazy. So yeah, that's awesome. So he has no sign of wanting to do it.
And my daughter is all artist all the time. She absolutely wants to do it. She's more of a drawing type of girl, but she's extrovert to she got all of the acting stuff. My son got all of the sanity. And Naomi does everything else. So she'll probably end up doing something in that world, but my daughter probably wants to like write, produce, direct. Basically she doesn't want anyone to tell her how to do it. So she'll be, and then again, and I know I'm joking, but it is nice that at least once they want to do that you know how to help them or like how to be like, here's what you can do, or also to be like, you don't have to do that or whatever. Just certain pitfalls that like that's all I think everyone wants to help, because it's no matter what you do, even the easy route is hard because whatever's hard to you is hard to you. But
it's like if you can miss a couple pitfalls, like that's why I told my little brother, like I try to never older brother him, but I was like, if I could undo one thing, it'd be smoking cigarettes. You know, if I would have never picked up one thing,
right?
And he like took it to heart and like was like, we have smoked cigs together, but he's like, I stopped, like or whatever.
Yeah.
He weird enough, he has like he's so introverted that he goes, I actually buy some because I think it's cool to just have them wrapped up. My mom would buy
smokers love that guy.
My mom would buy him cigarettes when we were kids. I would literally be like, can I get a dirt bike? They're like, oh, I don't know, and get all scared. And then my mom's buying my brother cigarettes. They're like, well, he likes how they look, and I'm like, yeah, they're fucking cool.
Here, go have some of that wine.
Joey is he's a very good, like, think about this. Like, I'm just like, you want to do it or not?
That's awesome.
Oh my God. But yeah, that's cool. So she wants to do it. And then are you guys like, is she doing classes or doing like, does she have like an agent? Like, or anything like that? Do you have a rule about that? Like 18 or anything?
Well, I wanted her to do it in school when it was like safe and there wasn't a job.
Yeah.
You know, where like she felt pressure to get the part or felt bad if she didn't do it. So right now she's just in the school plays.
Yeah.
And then there was a point too where the, agents were like, hey, we need a full family audition. And we might bring the whole family for
Those
that.
are not, I've always seen those. I'm like, that's got to be nice.
Where it's a real family.
I got 2 commercials during COVID with my girlfriend at the time. We were living together.
Yeah.
Got her in 2 commercials. Then I got her one. I go, hey, my agent just thinks that like maybe you could get this one. And she looked at it and she goes, I don't know if I want that. And I go, it's crazy. You're already turning down roles. I couldn't get over it. I was like, are you fucking serious? She's already like, I don't know if that's me. And I'm like,
I know the project doesn't speak to me.
She's doing way better than me. My best friend was the same way when we did stand up. I took so long. Here's his trajectory. We both did an open mic. We went on, then he didn't do stand up for a while. Then we did a road show in Kansas City. So he did the show with us. So his second show was on the road. His third show was at his college, opening for a dude at his college. Jesus. And then he's like, I'm done with stand up. And I'm like, that's the career, bro. Like, it's crazy. But so you guys are doing classes and stuff to make her see like she loves it before you're like, you see all your friends like, I saw you on TV, because you know what that's like compared to the art of it for sure.
Yeah. And there's definitely like the crushing blow that when you don't get something, or the idea that you have to make money doing it. We don't want to remove that from her, experience right now. So she does school plays, you know, she doesn't, which is how I started doing it as well too.
Yeah.
And then my son might start doing like extra work, but for the paycheck. Because he's out in Los Angeles. And
and that's a great introvert. Like, there's so many guys that we've talked about like on set. Like, I like how the whole thing works. Like we said early on, we're both such Midwest guys. We were trying to help the grips and stuff like that. And they're like, you physically can't help us. And you're like, that's our job too. You're taking our job. And it's like that whole thing. But also it's like, that world is great. Like, I know guys in that world. There's certain guys that I won't name, but like, because they're introverted, they would hate it. But like every time I go up, I'm like, what up? I'll say Mark. I'm like, what up, Mark? And he's like, Bobby, how's it going? Like, real quietly, but like you go on these sets and you see people, and them being great at their job is important too. So many people like in stand up, it takes a while for them to realize they're like, I kind of like stand up, but I'm actually way better at running shows. Yeah. Oh shit, maybe I'll just do this side of it, produce shows or whatever. So it's like,
it's a way to find out what you want to do. I think my son would be a very good like producer. Like, he'd be great. He loves being in creative fields and stuff. So, but he's got a kind of that manager brain. And then my daughter is all artist all the time. So she'll be,
Well, dude, I feel like the luckiest guy that I get to like meet people. I mean, I really have had such amazing interactions with people that I've grown up with, which you are, which is crazy. Like literally, I literally call my best friend. I go, dude, you remember Malcolm in the Middle? I was like, dude, I literally can't believe this. But like watching you guys, and like Story of the Year is my favorite band. And when I got to meet them, it made me so happy to find out that, like, because I asked them once I became their friends, I was like, did you guys ever like, was it like hard being on the road, being away from your families? They go, dude, we got married as soon as we were on the road. We didn't have like that party phase. And I go, well, in your videos, you guys would like kind of drink, and they said it on their podcast. They go, a lot of those early videos were us faking it. We would like, I go, when you're drunk, he goes, we were faking it. And I go, when you threw up? He goes, I just made myself throw up. And he goes, that was like the cool thing. And they would be a fun punk. They would do things that were so funny. But when I would watch them, I was like, I just got this like love off of them. And I was like, oh, that's cool to know that like people that you see and identify with and like have inspired, like you do something, you don't even know where it goes. And like, I watched that movie so many fucking times. I've seen Jeepers Creepers so many times, to then meet them and to know that like everyone in Story of the Year, I know their wives, their kids, they're so nice, sweet. I was at, dude, the lead singer Story of the Year was like, Dan was like, hey, do you want to come over to my house on New Year's? So I hung out with Nikki Glazer, and she did a show at downtown. And then I left and went to my favorite band's fucking house and like hang out with them. And I was like, and then we're sitting there and we're all hanging out. And then his daughter was playing piano, and I go, I can't even play this song. And she goes, it's just da 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 da. And I kept trying, and I just remember she was like, oh boy. But I was just like, this is just crazy. We were all just like hanging out, like, and it just felt like because that's like something that I think is important. Like I've partied, but I think that like just real love and like friendships and stuff. And it's cool to know that you had that, because sometimes you watch movies, you don't know where people end up. And it's cool to know that you have that and that you've had that the whole time. It's not something you're like, no, I had a bad spot. You're like, no, I always had a wife and we found each other in acting school. And then I had this beautiful family. On Fridays, it was family night on the set. And you're like, it wasn't even this thing where you're like, well, then I had to stop so that my wife could just act, that you guys both got to continue acting and stuff. And like, I'm happy to know that you're amazing and that, like, dude, Benny loved you immediately. The dog Benny loved him immediately. Yeah. But dude, that's awesome. I'm happy to.
I think there's a lot of real people. There's more real, cool, down to earth people in the arts and entertainment than you think, because the ones that are like assholes get the most publicity, and that makes a good story. But I have come across very, very few people that sucked.
Can I tell you something? I agree. Yeah. And even the ones that do, like, there's something that I've noticed that I was like, they always say the cream rises to the top, but I kind of see the other side. I go, but also like, sediment and gross stuff will find its way to the bottom. Yeah. So like, it's
a great analogy.
I appreciate. Thank you. Like I was just thinking of that one day. I was just like, because there was something had happened and I got really upset at someone, and then I realized I was like, I'm not. That's who they are. It's not even at me. They messed up and it was at a show. They did something very egregious. It was on two different shows. And after we found out, we were like, this is crazy. And I was upset with them. I was like, that's just how they see the world. Yeah. They'll find their way to the bottom. And it did. Literally, I talked to someone later. They go, I just fired that guy off my show. And I go, and they were like, whoa. And then we bonded. And it was beautiful. Yeah. So it's like, but yeah, I agree the same way. I do think that like, if you want to get into this world, like I think that was probably where my parents' fear was, even though I told you this outside. I remember my mom, I go, how much does it cost to be Batman? And she goes, actually, they pay you. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? She was like, it's actually a lot.
I'm Batman. Dude, fuck that. From that point on,
that's all I wanted to do. Yeah. And then you realize you're like, oh, they can be scared for me for that or whatever. But when I did stand up, there was a dark side to it. I've been around dark sides of like all that stuff. Yeah. But when you realize that, like when you are seeking out the earlier classes, when you realize that you're trying to do this and taking opportunities, like we said earlier, that you're like, I don't even know where this is going to go, and being nice on set or at comedy clubs. If you do that, and if when you come home, if you got nothing from it, but you feel good, I would say that's what you're supposed to do. Yeah. But if the only way you feel good is like, when am I going to get a thing? Like, even
you'll
though
constantly be disappointed.
You'll constantly be disappointed.
Because then you'll be like, when am I going to get the next thing?
Yes.
It's like, when am I going to win my second Academy Award? And you're like, bro, you just won an Academy Award, or you went to the Academy Awards. Yes. I was really, really lucky to be in Wet Hot American Summer when they made the TV show. Oh, so these like comedic.
Dude, was it? And I'm sorry to say, because I had a friend early on that loved that, and she had shown me that, and we watched it because I didn't see it growing up, and I was like, this is amazing. So funny. You were in when they did the new one.
Yeah. So they did the TV series.
Because you had the multiple collars. Yeah. I don't remember you were, dude. I forgot you were, dude. Yes.
Tiger Claw Preppies. Yeah.
Yes.
So they did the first day of camp. So Wet Hot American Summer was that cult classic in like 2001, and it was the last day of camp. They went back and did a Netflix series that was the first day of camp.
Oh yeah, and I watched it reverse engineered. And I got so confused. So I started the other show, and I was like, I thought that was the end.
Right, because they go back, and then they did another one. They did 10 years later when everyone like comes back together. So like, I mean, just murderer's row of comedic sketch people that I was so happy to just be in their orbit. Like, they didn't really announce who they were going to be able to get. So like, sometimes I would read the call sheet that you get the day before, and I would like freak out at who was coming in, because these guys that were part of the state, and then they also there was a little like weird web series called Stella, but it's Michael Ian Black, David Wayne, and Michael Showalter. So these guys, and then they did Wet Hot American Summer.
So they were their grown plants in the floor of their house. Like they did some of the weirdest shit.
Have you seen the sweatpants store one?
No. Dude, let's watch it after this.
It's really funny.
That's hilarious.
Sweatpants, where they just sell sweatpants for people that are going through breakups. And then the guy's like tailoring a sweatpant to him. Is Michael Showalter asking Michael Ian Black like what kind of breakup it is? It's great.
Dude, that's so
it's really
funny.
Good.
I love that. I can't express to you how fucking cool you are. It's so cool to know you also like legit like that. You were like, it would have bummed me out if you were like, I like Jeff Dunham's my favorite comic. Like, I'd be like, oh, okay, we'll be right back. And you can love whoever you want, but to know you like that's like legit deep cut
they're
sketch
so good.
stuff.
I love them so much. So they're awesome, nice people.
You met them.
So
I know like on that set, but I didn't know if you got to. Sometimes it's tough too. Like I didn't know. You never know what, because also even Michael Showalter that day, like people have relationships, and you'll meet people that you're like, even if I'll tell someone that they weren't rude, and they'll be like, sounds like they were rude, and I go, yeah, but they're an actor, and they were at a comedy club, and they were just doing their thing. They didn't say get fucked,
right,
or anything like that.
Sure, and you might have a day or whatever like that, or you can misinterpret something. No, because I was able to work with these guys. So you hang out all day with them, and they're awesome dudes, and they hire other awesome people. So all these people, like Kristen Wiig shows up, and Paul Rudd is there, and Chris Pine shows up to do a thing. Jason Schwartzman's there. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, dude,
Kansas City, I was giving him shit for it because he's a Royals fan, which is great. Yeah. And they're all nice people. They're
Our dad
hilarious.
moved away. The fucking Rams moved to LA.
Yeah. My son was like, "We got a team, Dad," and I was like, "Sort of."
You didn't know him like I did. That's great.
But one of the producers of Wet Hot American Summer was like, "I'm not going to hire you unless I know you and I want to work with you all day long." He was like, "I don't care." So like this idea that you're going to be a cool person and meet other cool people, and whether it's going to give you anything back is not necessarily the focus that you want to have, because you don't know where it's going to come back to you. And also you don't want to look back on your life and be like, I was taking advantage of every opportunity I had, as opposed to like I was getting the most out of every opportunity that I had. And all these people like Molly Shannon, and they're all just like,
I thought of her today. People. She's like, if I had like a female comic that like, and there's so many, but like since I was a kid, I remember going to theaters to see Superstar, bro. Like she's
she's this
so cool.
wonderful woman that you just
her.
Yeah, we just hung out because you're sitting on set all day. Elizabeth Banks was there, like this huge iconic like female director and everything like that. She's cool as hell. Yeah, because those are the people that other people want around, and and you also trust your money with, because you also know even though they're good with money, they're not gonna go fuck off with it. Yeah, they're gonna really do something. So then they give them stuff to make,
and they
projects,
know how to delegate
and they make more
it to good people too.
Yeah, and that's who they hire, and that's
so good to hear.
They're all great people. If you ever watch any Wet Hot American Summer, every single person in there is an awesome person.
That means a lot that you know that. And
and it wasn't like they were nice with a meet and greet. Like I hung out with them for 12 hours, 5-6 days in a row, late into the night, and they're all hilarious. Like Michael Ian Black is the funniest dude. Like you can't even keep up with him,
bro. He's not. Have you ever seen that clip? And I know because that's how you know when two people really like stuff, is we're just like showing Pokemon cards of like, you ever seen this? You ever seen Michael Ian Black's letter that he like writes to a girlfriend like back in the day, and she doesn't write him back? She was like, she gets a wrong email from a girl from like back in the day, and he keeps emailing her, and it just if I may, we'll watch Sweatpants and we'll watch this. But if you like Michael Ian Black, it's unreal. And at the end, he's like, wow, I guess I'll get fucked. And it's just like, but there's certain guys like that. And I grew up that too, because even though I'm a stand-up, I love classic stand-up, but I've always liked, and this is what we're alty, hard work stand-up is like some of my favorite shit. Stuff that you see that is so off the wall or at the time original, but you know that like Michael Ian Black is like works hard. He's like
absolutely
no, like, because I have guys that'll be like, I have an idea for a sketch, and I'm like, make it. And they're like, yeah, but I'm gonna wait till I get the opportunity. And I'm like, how will you?
Yeah.
How? Me and my sketch group have flown to New York and LA. We've done stuff, and we're still like, how do we do that? Like, you have to make more stuff. Yeah. But that's crazy.
These guys were doing web series before before YouTube was around. They got the idea that you could post your own stuff on, and that's what Stella was. And then it didn't have to be 30 minutes. It didn't have to fit into a show. Like they could have something that was like 9 minutes or 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and it could be way out there because they wanted, but they, obviously they had already done the state.
Yeah.
But I think when they were doing that too, like they couldn't believe that MTV was going to let them do what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
But no, those guys are all awesome. And that was, I've been very, very fortunate to be around great people. And it just reminded me that you don't have to be an asshole.
No,
you
and
really
it won't
really get you anywhere.
And like I said,
it's not a cutthroat business.
It's not a cutthroat business. And like we were talking outside, like when I met Dane Cook in LA, who was like, he wasn't the first comic I heard. He was the guy that when I heard it, I'm like, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And when I met him,
that special that he did
like,
where it was theater in the round. That one was so great.
Bro, dude, when I was a kid, dude, I remember hearing his jokes, didn't even know what he looked like, and just listen, because I was drunk at Missouri State with my dad. And my cousin,
classic story.
And I got to tell him this. My cousin was flunked. So he had to go to summer college. Didn't even know they did that. And we're like at Missouri State in Strawberry Fields. That song still holds relevance. Yeah. And I'm there and I'm like underage drinking. And I think the statute of limitations are up. But I was underage drinking and I started getting so drunk that they're like, hey, you should probably stop and also like sit over here. And I was like, hey, can I listen to like Led Zeppelin or Blink-182 because I was like trying to be cool. I was like, which one's cool to you guys? And I was young, and they put on these headphones, and I heard like, oh yeah, like heard like the Kool-Aid bit from like back in the day, and I was like transported. And then I also walked a college girl home that night. We did not like that cool, but I did just like walk her home, and she was like, it was very nice that you were being sweet. I was like, yeah, no problem. Fucking 13-year-old tubby stomach, like we were all swimming or whatever. And my dad's like, where are you? And I'm like, well, I shouldn't be here. So also like, let's also grow up. Yeah. But dude, it was that meeting him. I got to like tell him that story, and he was like, oh, dude, he goes, you know. And he was like, I kind of felt the same way when I met Steve Martin. There's these stories, and I was just exactly the
goes
same
from
thing
one to the other.
You go from one to the other, and I believe in that, and that's why I do take all these opportunities and always try to say yes and be as kind as you can, because like we're all like we're kind of grown, and I'm not trying to get too like spiritual, but it's like we do all like go through this shit together, and like stuff inspires other art inspires other stuff, so like you always gotta like try stuff, and it's cool to know that like everyone you've worked with is great, and that we both like, it seems like when I'm like, hey, how's your horizon look where you've worked? You're like, beautiful. I'm like, mine's good too, and everyone's like, man, it's a cutthroat business. You're like, which one are you talking about? Like,
I know,
you know what I mean?
don't know.
Sure
it hasn't been my experience.
It hasn't been my experience either.
Stuff happens and it hurts, but it's always like not as personal as you think it is. Like I just never came around people that were trying to take you down.
Yeah, and you don't seem
the
competitive.
business itself. Yeah, I mean, I definitely like have a tenacious side. I have a jealous side. We all do. I have a competitive side. You know what I mean? Like I get upset if somebody else gets something that I really, really wanted. But when I was younger, it affected me a lot more, and I kind of had to resolve that. And like you said, it wasn't that I didn't get it because he got it, and I'm not trying to beat my fellow actor.
Yes,
as much as there's enough for us all to.
There's enough for everybody. And what I can actually do now is like, and this is easier for me, like in this experience, but like, you know, when they do like the Missouri lottery commercial, I told someone, I go, for an actor, that's my lottery. Like, and so I auditioned like twice. And this last time I actually felt good. And it wasn't even like a Missouri commercial. It was the one where you're like, oh no, it wasn't the Missouri lottery. It was the Welcome to Missouri. It was like fun. The new whatever. And I auditioned, and I remember I was like, man, it would be so cool to be like, that's how Missouri I am or whatever. And I didn't get it. And I saw the girl that did. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, there are times where I was like, they picked the right person.
Yeah.
That is how she did it, how good she did it. For me, especially the acting side, I'm not like, whatever. I'm like, who's the most Missouri person? It should be a guy like, come to Missouri. Branson's not bad. Right? And she did it. And afterwards, I told her on set one time, I go, hey, I was also up for like that role. She goes, I know a lot of people. And I go, no. I wanted to tell you that to know that like it went to the right person. And you could tell she was like, thank you. Cause I'm sure some people are like, I wanted that too. I don't do that. Cause I'm like, when I get I did my special, and a comic who I've done forever, we've known each other for over 10 years, was like, this is what they did. They're like, hey, it's cool you're doing that special. I've actually been thinking about doing one, and I was like, man, it kind of breaks my heart that like, can you have a moment? Like, you know what I mean? Can you do whatever? But there's just these times that you realize that like just being cool, seeing where like stuff can take you and all that stuff is very beautiful. But I'm glad you have that. But is there anything that like we haven't talked about that you are like something you've worked on or experienced, anything? Like, it's such a weird question, but I would hate to have gotten off this being like, we didn't talk about something you want to, because again, this means so much that you've done.
No, I think we covered everything, and some good stuff there too. I feel content.
I feel too. I've never done this. Can we do something?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I just agreed to it.
Yeah. On camera. Okay. So I don't even know how this will go, because I've never done this, and I've never taught acting. So I don't know if this is anything, but I kind of want to do like a little, just like an acting exercise. Would that be cool?
Sure.
Okay. So I'll kind of set it up as light as I can. I think I feel like it'll be pretty easy. You can ask any questions and then we'll go. But I want to do like maybe like a scene where we're like, maybe like in like kind of like a horror film or something like that.
Nice.
Just a little bit. Maybe it's like a horror film, but it's like before like the guy, we're not scared. We're about to be, but we're like, everything's cool. Right. Because we noticed that like maybe there's like, was that a sound we just heard? A crazy sound under your chair?
Nice.
Okay.
All right.
Is that cool? Anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah.
Oh man,
it's beautiful.
Bantam, Banthams, go Panthers! You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
you played awesome, dude.
Dude, thanks. You too, bro.
Really good. I'm glad you got some time in there,
dude. Thanks, man. You too. I mean, we do it together, bro. Fucking fly high, brother, for real. Yeah, I thought I heard that too.
Yeah, okay, good. I thought I was going crazy.
That was like loud.
That sounded like nails on a fucking.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, do we blow a tire or whatever? It's like, you know, that, yeah.
Chill.
Chill. What was that? But it did, it did sound like it was 100% came from under your chair, though, for sure. Right?
I don't feel like there's anything down there.
Well, there's nothing under my chair. Would you?
Yeah.
Would you?
Oh my God, Bobby! Oh my God!
What?
My fucking
What the
hand
fuck?
is stuck.
What is it?
My hand is stuck.
What is
I
it?
can't get it out.
Get it.
Pull my
Okay,
hand
pull
out.
it. If there's something
Pull
out there,
my
pull it
fucking hand
out. There might.
Oh my God! It's a keeper transformative. I love it.
What's inside? Oh! And scene, everybody. It is Jeepers Creepers 2, which scared the shit out of me as a kid. Dude, you did that fucking absolutely perfectly. I love you so
All
much.
of a sudden, I was like, "Wait, there really is
I know.
something."
When you kept
under
reaching, I was like, when I put it under there, I go, it's perfectly flat. He's just gonna be like, there might be spiders under here.
Well done.
Thank you, buddy. Dude,
Well
hey,
done.
that's Discombobulated. That's the podcast. Eric Nenninger. You have to check out everything he's done. I can't wait to rewatch, and I got to finish Generation Kill, but I'm going to rewatch Wet American Summer.
Yeah,
You're
please.
fucking awesome. Thanks for being cool.
Thank you,
Eric
man.
Nenninger, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Dude, you're the fucking man.
That was hilarious.
Thank you, brother. God, that was